Thanks again, Bella. Topping on for an episode of Untapped Stories. I'm super excited to chat with you. I know we've gone back and forth via email for a while, and you were one of our top 40 coaches this year. So it should be good to get your feedback on your training tips, your coaching style. And I like to start all these interviews just by going all the way back for the listeners. So letting them know more about you as a person, who you were growing up, what your sports experience was like. So maybe if you can walk through your early athletic days, if you were a multi-sport athlete, if you just played field hockey, and how those early experiences, kind of to like elementary, middle school, leading up to high school, how they shaped who you became as a player and a coach.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk too. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of
So,
course.
starting super, super early out, I grew up doing gymnastics from like those mommy and me classes up to the competitive levels, up until like early middle school, sixth and seventh grade. And then I ended up having an injury, kind of stopping from there. But I think that created a foundation for my motivation, for my personal goals, as well as like those perfectionistic tendencies that come along with the sport of gymnastics. It definitely played an impact
Yep.
on my like athletic journey and how I am in sport going into today. So after I dealt with that injury and kind of took a break from sports, I started field hockey in eighth grade. I had no clue what it was, and I just kind of fell into it. Started in that middle school eighth grade season, and by the end of my freshman year of high school, I knew I wanted to play in college. I didn't really know like what the different divisions were like or anything like that. I just knew I wanted to continue playing and see where that took me. So around junior year, I committed to Gettysburg College during COVID, just from talking with the coaches, going to different clinics once things opened back up again, and I ended up at Gettysburg. I just fell in love with the sport even more. I had a great experience, and my coach's impact on my role as an athlete there kind of led me to want to continue coaching and go into that. So my friend kind of introduced me to the company, and I started coaching from there. In that summer, it just kind of took off with local girls around here, and I really fell in love with teaching them that stuff and going through different techniques.
I mean, you've been one of our best coaches, so I know anybody who's gotten the chance to train with you, they're super, super lucky if they're local or if they've made the trek to meet you. Maybe before I get into all your coaching styles, which I know parents and athletes will want to hear, I think that time period in life is so important for young athletes. And it's not that if they don't succeed then, they can't be successful forever. There's so many athletes that have gone from never even playing their sport in high school to being a successful college and pro player. But for you, that eighth grade to freshman year period, like, so when you decided as a 13 or 14-year-old that you wanted to get into field hockey, what did that look like? Did you just, because you were naturally athletic, pick up the sport super well? Did you have like a really good, whether it was like a team coach or a trainer that helped you learn the sport that fast? Because that's a pretty quick turnaround to go from never playing field hockey in eighth grade to knowing and probably having the ability to be able to play in college by the end of your freshman year. That's like a 18, 20-month window. So what did that
Yeah.
look like, and how can parents and athletes learn from your experience with that?
Yeah, it was definitely in that 1 year window. I think a big part of it was growing up doing gymnastics. As much as it is a little bit of a team sport, it's probably like 80%, at least in my experience, like individual and working on yourself. I mean, your routines are by yourself and you're like practicing with other girls, but at the end of the day, you're still competing against the girls you practice with. So
Yep.
going into field hockey, it was kind of the complete opposite of that. I was now like a team sport athlete and just really fell in love with that aspect of working together, communicating on the field, the team bonding, like the pasta parties and all that fun stuff that those high school teams do. I really liked bonding with those girls, and especially in those like middle school years, they're tough on pretty much every kid in that age group. It's a tough time. You're growing up, you're finding new friends, you're in a new school. So I think meeting those girls in that sport aspect where we could all work towards something together really helped me develop and figure out like what I wanted like my future to look like, what I wanted to do for others, and who I wanted to become kind of helped shape that through field hockey.
And did you start, not to
Mm-hmm.
double down, but I'm just curious, did you start out like the first game, were you awful and then by the end of the season you were really good, or were you just
Mm-hmm.
did you just pick up the stick and on day one you were really good? Like, how did that actual training and I guess like on field play shake out since you were so new to it?
Yeah, so I started my summer going into eighth grade. I just signed up for a local summer camp, and the first day of the
Okay.
camp, I remember it was downpouring outside, so they brought us into the high school gym and just said, okay, start passing. And my friend who I did the camp with had already played before, and I had no clue to even how to hold the stick. I didn't know you could only use one side of the stick. And I just remember like the balls were sliding across the floor. It was loud. The rain was pouring down. Like you could hear it through the ceiling, and I just had no clue what I was doing.
You're like, bad choice. Should have
So
stuck with
that was a
gymnastics.
very long day. But I guess I picked it up fairly fast. I don't really remember too much besides that one moment where I was just, what is this contraption?
That's funny.
um,
I think that happens probably for a lot of kids though, because they all, anytime you're learning something new, and I've realized that more as an adult, you're gonna feel like an idiot or like you're far behind. But like you have to start somewhere. So having that confidence probably is the biggest thing, just to get started and keep putting one foot in front of the other. That's really
mhm.
cool though, and I guess you obviously had a good career. And then what was it like? 'Cause I know a lot of athletes and parents that listen to this, they train with our coaches. They really want to either have their kid or they, as the kid, want to play in college. So when you got to Gettysburg and started playing, I know it's Division 3 in a similar conference that I was in
Mhm.
when I played, but what was D3 sports like for you? Did you love your time at Gettysburg? Was it a lot to manage academics and sports? Do you feel like you had a good handle on it? What would your,
Mhm.
like little pitch be to kids who want to play in college? What it's actually like?
I know sometimes with Division 3, there's like kind of a like stereotype around it that it's like not as serious as the Division 1 sports. I mean, like we could have like 20 sets of parents at my game at a time, and then like you're scrolling through the channels, and ESPN is playing all of these like college D1 huge thousands of people in a stadium. So it's like obviously every kid's dream is to play for as many people as they can and get their name out there and be successful like that. But at the D3 level, I would argue that I felt just as much like support and love and passion from like spectators and just my school community being at that level. And I was in a sorority in college. I was in a couple like academic clubs and things like that. Through my major, I studied abroad for a semester in Australia, where I also got to play field hockey there, and I got to have a great experience on the field hockey team as well. So, being a Division 3 athlete, I highly recommend considering if you're going to play in college and looking into that, just because academic wise, um, social wise, with the opportunities you can do, there's just a huge realm of things you can get out of it just besides athletics.
I love that line. I don't think a lot of D3 or potential college athletes know that. Like I had the same experience. I started sophomore, junior year, getting recruited by a mixed bag of D1, D2,
Mm-hmm.
D3. And once you sniff even going D1, a lot of kids are like, I have to do that or else like I'm a
Mm-hmm.
failure. And then I got to my senior year and I wound up choosing D3 because it just was a better fit to go to Hopkins for me. But kind of like you, I played a lot,
Mm-hmm.
had such a good balanced experience. But I think a lot of people think D3 is what it was 30, 40 years ago, where it's kind of like a glorified, intramural or like a club
Mm-hmm.
team. It is not that anymore. I've seen so many good Division 3 players that probably I know could have played D2, if not D1, but just wanted to take a step back and actually enjoy their college experience. So I'm glad you said
Yeah.
that because I think a
Yeah.
lot of people who go through the full 4 years of D3 have that same thought that like I actually had fun and like I didn't hate my teammates and it was a good college experience. It wasn't just cutthroat all the time. So that's really cool.
Yeah. And like, kind of with that, like, just because your sport, my sport, and time playing field hockey at Gettysburg wasn't like projected on this big screen with sponsors and NIL deals, like, doesn't take away the amount of passion that I had for my sport and my team had for my sport. Like, we still work equally as hard along the NCAA levels. And
100%.
I think that's something that gets overlooked sometimes.
No, 100%. After college, you're getting your master's degree now and you're coaching a lot. Just curious, what made you want to get into coaching? Because I think everyone's got their own answer, how they wind up doing private lessons and offering it. But I guess, yeah, what gave you the spark? And then since then, what has private coaching and working with kids really meant to you?
So yeah, after my senior season ended, I knew I definitely wanted to continue being involved in the sport of field hockey and helping others. My career goals from when I was little have kind of shifted, but I always knew I wanted to do something helping people. So I used to want to do something like therapy wise, and I was a psychology major. So now I'm getting my master's in sports psychology to hopefully in the future work with athletes on mental performance and
Awesome.
all that stuff psychologically wise with field hockey. But private coaching has been super fun. I've also coached at the high school level and like done a few camps and clinics here and there at different colleges and with different field hockey organizations. But I knew I always wanted to go into coaching and help girls, especially one on one. You get to make a connection with them and kind of tailor each practice to what they need and what they want to learn, depending on their level, where they are, and where they want to go. So that's been super fun. Yeah.
Getting into private coaching, but knowing that you wanted to stay in sports. I've seen so many awesome coaches kind of blend that, where they do some individual mentor performance lessons and they do some individual sport lessons. But even when you do the sport lessons, having the mental performance background and the psychology degree is so helpful. That way you can actually like get through to an athlete at the right stage. There are a lot of coaches in general, like they know the sport super well, but when you have that role model, that mental piece, like it adds such a backing, I think, for the lessons, just to give kids the right mentality. And same thing when it comes to private coaching. I think you can make a massive difference in that one-on-one time versus a group, or especially a team time. When there's 15 kids and 2 or 3 coaches, it has to be about structure and order and like getting you something, I guess, for a team, getting you ready for the next game and the next tournament. But when it's 60 minutes and just you and the coach, you can do so much for the athlete. So I think it's so much fun, and I'm glad you're picking it up and doing really well with it.
Yeah, and using that mental performance background along with the one-on-one sessions, I really like to, along with tailoring like their skills and what they want to work on field hockey wise. Getting to know them in that one-on-one session is super beneficial for both of us. Getting to know them as a player, I can also like open up and be vulnerable with them in return, and getting to know like what they want to work on, and then kind of take the mental side of that and apply those skills as well. So that's been super helpful for me going into the field and them as an athlete.
I got to ask, because I used to see it, and I trained for a long time before starting Athletes Untapped. I did basketball, my wife did soccer. I probably, over the course of 4 or 5 years, had like, I don't know, close to 60, 70 clients. It was a ton of fun. But I feel like every time, boys and girls, probably heavier on the girl side, where at the first lesson shows up and they're so quiet. Like they don't say a word, and they're like kind of nervous to work with me because they know I played at a high level. And then as time goes on, I'm like, we're trying to get through the 60 minutes, and I'm like, you guys got to stop talking in terms of like, tell me about like their friends and their day to day, but you build that trust with them, and it's so cool to see that. Have you seen a similar thing where, for parents and athletes who don't know what private lessons are all about, maybe they walk into it like a little bit nervous and they're unsure of like their abilities and their confidence, but once they get things going, like the happiness and the smiles really pick up? Is it like do you see a certain like lesson count where that happens, or is it just natural as they get better and they start to work with you?
I think it's more like of a natural progression. They definitely sometimes come in super shy, and as the coach, I take it as my job to kind of get them comfortable, show them that I'm not like as intimidating as it may seem, and being one-on-one, like all eyes on them. It's not as scary as it looks like it would be. And especially I relate to them because I am and used to be super, super shy. So I know if I were going into one-on-one lesson, I would not know what to say at all, and I would probably be mute. So I really take it as my job to kind of open them up. And I notice, I guess, like the first progression, and like they start to get more comfortable as they start to like learn new things, and you can see the wheels turning in their head, or like when they perform something super well or learn a new skill, you see like that stuff click and they smile, and it's like they feel successful, they're comfortable with you, and they can continue and open up with that.
That's the coolest part, when you can see it all. It's never in one lesson, but like over time when things start to make sense and they have so much more fun with it. I think that's when sports unlock so much for kids, just beyond the field or the court. It's like they can really become I think a better person overall for it. What about so actually, because field hockey for me, I know it a little bit, not like other sports. I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm a field hockey expert, but in terms of like training, so what does a session look like for you? Is it half conditioning, half stick skills, or like how do you try to balance that with the kids? Is it depending on the age and the athlete? Like what's your typical 1 hour session look like, and how much are you getting done?
A lot of it depends on like what grade they are in high school, or like if they're playing club, kind of what position they are, especially if they're defense. I'm not going to take them over to the goal and start shooting with them. But a lot of the girls I have worked with are midfield and forward, and I was a forward, so that definitely helps sometimes. And I'll always ask if they want to work on conditioning, because I don't want to be that coach that runs them, especially in a one-on-one session, if they don't want to be doing that. But a super specific session that I had done a bunch with one client was like a little bit half conditioning. Sometimes it's more sprint based, sometimes it's more just like endurance, and we'll kind of go through that. We'll take a break, of course, go into some like stationary skills, and then kind of build what we did in the stationary skills back up into more game like scenarios, and we'll break it down and kind of say like if your opponent did this, you can use this skill for that, and more specifics depending on like what they have questions about, like how their team plays, and just getting that background to kind of shape the lesson to how they can apply it in the game.
That's really smart. And I think the conditioning piece is so funny. I've had so many kids where the parents are like they don't really need to do much,
Yes.
or they try to like guide it, and then the kid says something completely different. So I think just talking to the athlete, because they have to ultimately, and I've seen this, they have to want to be there. I mean, it
Mhm.
cannot be their parents as the one driving it. And I feel like if it's only mom or dad giving you as the coach feedback, and then you're making the kid do what mom and dad say, it's kind of like, why am I even with this coach? But if you get feedback with from the athlete, even if you mix it up with what the parent says and what the kid says, it's so much more valuable. And they feel like they're actually like working with you, not just
Mhm.
being told what to do, which goes a long way.
Yeah, definitely.
What about not really on the court or on the field stuff? I feel like young athletes today, we see it all the time. They face so many pressures, which you might have faced more than me because I'm 32. I know you're a recent grad, but like there's so much out there now with social media.
Mhm.
You probably see all of your peers constantly like posting highlight tapes, or even like, not them, but you see like professional athletes succeeding constantly online. How do you help on the mental side young athletes overcome like the fear of failure, or recognizing that they're so far behind maybe where a peer is, but that it's not that big of a deal and you have time to catch up just like you did? Like how do you bake that into your sessions and really help them build confidence at the end of the day, no matter where they are at their sport?
So every session I have, whether it's like my 10th practice with this athlete or my first one, I'm always making sure I'm meeting them where they're at and we're not going too far ahead, or I'm not using too big of words and going too far so where they kind of like go inside themselves and are like, I'm not ready for this. So meeting them where they're at, I'm constantly making sure and asking them like if this is too much, or do you want to do this? Do you want more of this in our session? Like what are you looking for next time? Just to make sure that they can get the most and that this session is like completely theirs to do what they want, and I'm just there to kind of guide them along and make sure they're, improving as we go on and that kind of thing. But yeah, just constantly like checking in to make sure they're good and they're happy. It's a huge part of it as well.
What about, because I know from
Mhm.
basketball I've seen this too. What about the flip where they probably can do something as the athlete, they're failing in session? Like how, I guess for
Mhm.
parents and athletes, just to give an idea of what a session
Yeah.
looks like, how long would you let a kid fail before you pull the plug and say, okay, like let's move on to the next drill? Or do you say in a positive way, like you have to finish that drill until we set the goal at, for me in basketball, like make 3 shots in a row, and if it takes them 20 minutes, like that's
Mhm.
fine. I'll sit here with you and help you through it. Like do you have like time blocks for things, or do you let it go until they get
Mhm.
the goal or the job done?
I have like loose timings of like what, like 20 minutes or 30 minutes, whatever it is, like sections will be focused on what type of skill or what conditioning. But a big part of my lessons that I like make known from the beginning and kind of my philosophy is that we're going to like learn from the mistakes, and especially here where I'm the only one watching you, like your high school coach or your club coach isn't here, your teammates or girls older than you aren't watching. Like I don't care if you make mistakes, we're going to fix it and we're going to break it down so I can see what's tripping you up and what you're doing good, so then we can build it back up and kind of change your technique to make you the most successful athlete you can be. So making sure that they know, like, I don't care if they lose the ball and it flies across the field, like I'll run and get it and we're going to try again and we're going to see what works and what doesn't. And I also am reminding them as we're going through these skills, like what feels good and what doesn't. And if you mess up, like replay it in your head, were your feet like facing a different way, was your mind somewhere else, like kind of just making them center their focus around what they're doing right and what they're doing maybe something that's not working, and keeping it like that. So we're also including that mental aspect in those small, like technique focused sections.
I love that. We've talked to so many coaches, but like that, I think you have to have that exact mindset for what you just said to be a really good private coach. Because like you said, so many kids, I'm just going to basketball, but like every time they're dribbling and they lose the ball once, they're mad at themselves, or
Mhm.
they're shy and like embarrassed that they lost it with me. And I'm like, if you don't lose the ball, I'm mad at you. Whatever that comparison is
Mhm.
for field hockey, but like you're supposed to be missing shots and losing it, because if not, the drills wouldn't be hard enough and we're not going like deep enough into your bag. So yeah, I think getting that mindset across to a kid, and it happened later for me in life, but I'm glad I learned it eventually, that it's, especially in practice, it's okay to fail. Push yourself to the point of like exhaustion, or like make a goal that's so high that if you get 2/3 of the way there in practice, like it's still a really big win. I think kids have to understand that to push their limits. And again, that's more the mental side than the training side, but I think it goes a really long way. And kind of like on the same
Mhm.
topic, helping players go from beginners to intermediate to good to great. And I'm sure through college and through training, you've seen a lot of athletes that are successful, and maybe some that could have been more successful. But what do you think separates those that are just like good from great? Like, is it a mental block? Is it a passion for the game? Is it like proper training? What's one of the biggest things you would equate the good to great jump being?
I would say it's both the things that you mentioned, that mental block and just your passion for the game. Like going into college, my mindset was like, I'm gonna get out of this like 4 years, 4 seasons of playing whatever I put into it. So for me, becoming, I guess, good to better and like the athlete I was from my freshman year to senior year was shaped by those like 6 a.m. practices I would do by myself in the summer, like every morning at the field, and then translating all that stuff into the game. So it really is what you put in it, you're going to get out of it, and kind of shaping your private lessons around that is like kind of the center of the importance of it, I guess, sometimes.
Yeah. I think you might be too humble. You saying you went from good to better. I think you were
I
great.
didn't want to say great. I don't know. My great.
I'll
Maybe
say
not
it for
everyone's.
you. Just based on your background and what I saw on the Gettysburg website, you were very much a great athlete. So, no, I agree. I
Thank
think
you.
you have to know that from an athlete standpoint, and it's so cliche and old school, but it is true. I'd say especially in like the D3, D2 world, and like no doubt in high school. Once you get to D1, I mean, there's so many different factors nowadays with like transfer portal, NIL, all that stuff. It's kind of like a pro athlete level at that point. But
Yeah,
D3, D2 in high
definitely.
school, like what you put into it is truly what you get out of it. I've seen some people get to college and then not care at all. They focus on social and academics, and that's fine, but they don't play. So I think you have a really good shot to make an impact based on your effort at those levels, which is, I think, really cool for athletes.
Yeah, and kind of with that, like understanding your role, like if you want to be that 4 season starter, then you have to understand like what goes into that. But if you're just there because you like the sport and you like being with the team, understanding like your role there is super important.
No, that is right. I've seen that happen way too many times where people come in with a big head as like freshmen. But no, we've talked to a lot of pro athletes who agree with that. No matter where you jump, whether it's from even like going back middle to high school to
Mhm.
college to pro to even like higher pro, you're at some point not going to be the best player on your team. Like you want to work towards that, but knowing who you are in the system, that does play a big role. I think early on, and just kind of like owning that
Yeah.
as you get older.
Yeah, and going back to like that kind of mental block and like the passion you have in the sport, just to like finish out my answer, like especially my junior to senior year, like my playing time didn't change. I started like every game my junior, I started every game my senior year, but I had I think like almost 4 times the goals I had my junior year that I had my senior year. And at my end of season meeting with my coach, she was like, "You don't really see like a huge like change and improvement in ability from junior to senior year. Like, you're kind of at your peak then, most likely, and like now after senior year you're done. So like what did you do differently? Like how did you do this?" And I was like, I thought back to like the end of my junior year, my meeting with her. She was like, "Bella, next year, like, is it you have to ball out." So I just took that with me. So I guess like my success my senior year was all mental, and it came from that like mental reminder, like this is my last time doing it. I'm like gonna be so mad at myself if I don't try as hard as I can.
It's so interesting you say that because I never had that epiphany type of meeting with the coach, but that's the second time I've heard almost the exact same thing. I think I mentioned it before show, but we had the former Ivy League baseball player on of the year. He's probably in like 2004 or five or something, but he had a good junior season. Said he met with the head coach of Penn afterwards, and they said like, if you take baseball and your life seriously and stop like messing around or just like ramp it up, we think you can be Ivy League Player of the Year next year. And he said he walked out of that meeting never even thinking that was a possibility. He was a good player, but not great. But he spent the entire offseason like chasing that goal, and he actually got it. I mean, I could talk about it forever because I love this business and what we do, but I think that's why coaching, whether it's like a good team coach or a private coach, it can make such a difference for kids and people who don't maybe play sports or haven't had that like impact on them. They don't really realize that, but it just takes the right motivation or the right like mindset to get into an athlete and actually understand what they can do. So many people have the potential. You just have to find it in them and like find the right way to motivate them too. Sounds like for you it was like, your last shot, coach saying like that's now or never, and that gave you the extra effort that summer. So I mean, that's just so cool though that a coach like
Yeah.
that was able to impact you in that way. Because without that, who knows? Maybe you wouldn't have taken that summer that seriously, or yeah, that's just a really cool moment I think for you guys.
Yeah, and something with what you just said about like regarding private lessons, like and potential, like as a private coach for individual lessons, I think as the coach and the provider, it's important to recognize that like these children and these athletes are taking it seriously, or they want to take it seriously because they're signing up for this individual lesson. So it's important to recognize like as the coach because they're taking this extra step to meet with you like on an off day by themselves for 60 minutes. Like they want to improve and they want to go forward in this sport, so you have to provide all the tools and what they will need to keep going further.
I got two final questions, Bella. I don't know if it's been long enough, but even if it's like a short win or a very quick result, what's been one of the coolest success stories or improvements you've seen from an athlete that you've trained?
So yeah, earlier this summer, after like the school year ended, I started working with this one athlete, and she had been playing a couple of positions, and we kind of narrowed it down to what she wanted to do based on her goals in the sport and where she wanted to be on the field as her role there. And she wanted to start as a varsity athlete that upcoming year, so we worked on that. We worked on conditioning, and of course that mental aspect we added in throughout. We worked on different goal scoring, and like one of my favorite parts was when she would come back the next week after a tournament that previous weekend, and she would tell me how she used a skill she learned and she scored and that kind of stuff, and just seeing it applied in real game scenarios was a huge success for her. And then later that season, when I was coaching with my high school, we ended up playing against her school, and she was starting on varsity, and she did great. So even though I was rooting for my high school, I was still rooting for her, of course. So that was really cool.
That's so cool. I mean, honestly, it's if a parent and athlete hears that, you might be like, okay, like that's a good story. But being that athlete, you're never going to forget that summer of work that she put in with you. Like that's going to mean so much to her looking back, because without you, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But the success rate of her being a starter on varsity is way less likely. So I love those kinds of stories making an impact. Actual last question. So if you could, kind of like we did at the beginning, put yourself back in the shoes of like maybe 7th, 8th grade Bella, not all the way back to gymnastics days, but when you started field hockey, having learned everything you did along the way, playing college sports, now coaching, and now getting your master's degree in psychology, what would your advice be to 7th and 8th grade Bella just starting out in field hockey and attending that first day of summer camp?
I'd probably tell myself to take a deep breath, because I was definitely very overwhelmed and confused in that gym when I first picked up the stick and we were passing inside. I could look back and like feel how horrified I was. So I'd probably tell myself it's not that serious. It's all for fun, and you have a whole team of girls with you, so lean on them as much as you can and just have fun in the sport and see where it takes you.
I like that. I like the last piece too, because I think I get a similar answer from most former college athletes, but not many people say lean on your team. I guess you having come from the individual sport to a team sport, it sounds like that had a pretty big effect on you in terms of like, I guess your overall enjoyment. Like, is it tougher? I imagine it would be tougher psychologically to do the individual sport because you have no one else to have your back or to go out there on the field with.
I would say an individual sport is tougher. I mean, my experience in an individual sport is from when I was like elementary school age. So,
True.
I can't speak for professional athletes and college athletes in gymnastics or other individual sports, but I could definitely see how an aspect of not having that team element or competing against the girls or boys that you're practicing next to every day can be like a challenge, because you have that camaraderie and that friendship, but it's also you have to turn it on in competition and separate that.
Yeah, that's really true. And good point though too. But I think there's something to that where if you play a team sport like that, you come together and individually, I mean, you're probably all good athletes, but the success of the team, I think, really depends on how well you guys gel during that season. So having that be like a good omen for young athletes that you're training individually, but you still have to put it together with your team, and then seeing the success for that is that's ultimately what you're there for, to help the team win. So that's really cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Also, Belle, this has been awesome. I can't wait to get this out. Ton of good feedback for parents and athletes, and again, you've been an amazing coach for Athletes Untapped. So appreciate the work you do there. Hope more athletes and parents can sign up with you. I know it's where we are in the Northeast, a bit of bad weather over the last couple weekends.
Oh yeah, maybe not this week, but
once it breaks, in hopefully February, if not March, I'm sure a lot of parents will be booking you. So again, thank you for your time. Can't wait to get this one out, and let us know what you need. I'll always here for you.
Yeah, thank you. Super excited to speak with you today. Thank you again.